Whatever it takes, guys, whatever it takes, we're going to spend all of our time talking about Endgame. Avengers Endgame is upon us. We did part 1 of our review on Sunday. Today, we're doing part 2, getting into the deeper, our favorite moments, talking about all the different aspects, tracking all of these characters through Endgame, and now where are they going in the future? Plus, breaking news on Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. All that and more today on Marvel Movie News.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk, we talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Marvel Movie News.
Oh, good afternoon to you, our merry Marvelites. Welcome back to Marvel Movie News, coming to you live from the Quantum Realm. Also, I'm going to say this right now. Spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
All the spoilers are coming. I'm not going to hold back at all for this episode. So I'm warning you now that this is the time. If you haven't seen Endgame, we still love you. We still love you. We still want you to listen every week. But from this point forward, there will be Endgame spoilers. That's just the nature of the show. You clicked on a video and or a podcast that said Avengers Endgame spoiler review part 2. Mm-hmm. It's on you at this point, guys.
Yeah. We're being very clear as to what this is.
I just want to say that up top so that everyone feels safe, feels loved, feels we acknowledge you, we see you, but we're going to talk about Endgame. I'm Zach Wilson, the voice of Doom, corporealized. We're over here with Spider-Woman Xia Anderson.
Ooh, I like that. Hey, guys.
I'm leaning into it. She's Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman. Christian needs one too.
I'm still most likely Uncle Ben, or I don't know, one of the older Watchers or something. But we'll figure it out.
Foggy.
Oh, I do love Foggy
nice
Nelson.
and lovable.
Yeah. All right, perfect.
There you go.
Blowatu. Call him Blowatu. Oh, that's terrible. Please, guys, come up with something for Christian.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Come on, I'm just not a big nickname guy. Sorry.
So today's show, we are going to get into all of our thoughts on Endgame. We are, as I said in the cold, we're going to talk about where these characters are going, what we like now that we know everything, some of the comments that the Russo brothers have made about Endgame now that it's been out for a week, which is crazy because it feels like it's been out forever.
I know.
Like I've seen it 3 times, like 2 times.
I've still only seen it twice.
Zia.
I've still only seen it once. I'm going again this weekend.
That's fair. It's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
It's like a day. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. We are going to go through. We also are going to have some fun. We're going to travel to the past for some Endgame reactions from old crew members of Marvel Movie News. Stand by for that. Before we get into Endgame reviews and everything, I want to real quick tell you what sort of the big headlines from this week were, in case you're still being you're still being wary of spoilers. We're not going to talk about this stuff right now, but just in case you wanted to know. And then if we have time at the end, we'll talk about these things. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. put out a new trailer for Season 6. It premieres next week. You can see it's a 2-minute long trailer to get you psyched up for the season. Coulson, Clark Gregg is in it, not Coulson at all.
Coulson.
This character's been apparently running around the galaxy for a while. Again, we'll talk about it at the back. The biggest news of the week was that Hulu announced 2 new series for Marvel shows coming. Live action series, not the 4 animated, the ones that they're doing. Live action series for the small one, Hailstrom. No one saw that coming. But the big one, Ghost Rider. Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider is getting a standalone series on Hulu, live action. Gabriel Luna is going to star, and despite some misleading rumors reported by Variety, this will be the version of the character that you saw in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, this is going to be a standalone show, so that if you never watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you can absolutely watch this series. It's still the same character.
Right.
It's according to Hulu, not according to any rumors. According to Hulu and the executive producers, one of which who worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is the same version of the character. It's just not going to spin off of those events. We'll talk about that more if we have time at the end of the show, because so much to talk about with Endgame. But I wanted to let you guys know, in case you're going to tune out for the spoilers, that's what's going on with Robbie Reyes, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we'll talk about who Robbie Reyes is a little bit and what you can expect from that show that we know of at this point. Those are the big headlines. But it's Avengers Endgame time, guys.
That's all I'm thinking about, really. I think about it every day.
But yes, we're going to jump in. real quick. So the first thing I want to do, I know that we had teased a guest on the show, but life is crazy. Sometimes you got to go off world because like a big purple dude shows up.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to go back in time. So I want to gear up the quantum realm and go back to, let's call this to phase 2 of the Marvel movie news universe. For our buddy Coy Jandro, who gave us his thoughts on Endgame in a quick video. So engage quantum realm drive. Coy, what did you think of Avengers Endgame?
Merry Marvelites! Oh, how I miss you. I wanted to send a message from me to you on this momentous day, this Endgame spoiler review at Marvel Movie News. I am sure that Zach has been killing it, but I wanted to say that I miss Zach and I miss you guys, and that Avengers Endgame, good God, spoilers just in case, is a love letter to comic books, to movies, to sequels. It somehow reinvented what sequels can be while also using every bit of Marvel's technology to make a movie only Marvel could make. Only Marvel can have a 22-movie landing where every bit of every Easter egg, every reference gets tied beautifully together. Every moment feels important because we've lived through every little microcosm of the moments before. It's a macro look at micro scale on so many things, and I love that it answers so many things we didn't know we wanted answers to. It checked so many boxes we didn't know we wanted, and it gives us every bit of fan service that doesn't feel like pandering while being frickin' magic. Endgame was everything it needed to be, and that is a hell of a thing. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, back to the main timeline,
right.
you guys.
Very well said, though.
Yes, thank you, Coy, from the past. But yeah, so this was this was Endgame was an amazing movie. As Coy was saying there, fan service. Like, just in case people missed part 1, reactions, just real quick. Xia, you first. What did you think of Endgame?
It was so good. I laughed throughout the entire movie. I cried throughout the entire movie. In case you missed part 1, I said the same thing, but it's just Marvel does this so well, and they did it so perfectly in this movie in particular, just balancing the comedy with the, tugging at your heartstrings drama, plus the action scenes. I mean, Jesus, that's where I cried the most.
Yeah.
Was the action scenes. It didn't even have like heartwarming moments. Those I was just like, yeah, this is great. Oh my God, they're fighting and everybody's here. And that's when I started crying. It was just so good. And just all of the little things. There were just so many little things. Like Coy said, so many little Easter eggs. And apparently, you sent it to us. There was Howard the Duck was there?
Yeah, but you had to really, zoom in and find him.
Look.
But,
And we'll talk about that. Yeah.
But and then sort of building on what Coy said, it was everything that I wanted and needed from the movie, and then a lot more that I didn't even realize I wanted or needed. It was this, definitely the emotional roller coaster. In part 1, Zach and I talked about crying a number of times, but then also just having that grin that you can't wipe off your face. It's just kind of between cries, then you're also just so ecstatic about everything that you're seeing. And just things you never expected. Like, I never thought we were going to get a fat Thor, but there he was. And now I think he's my favorite Thor. I don't know.
Yes.
So obviously there's just so much in the movie that, it was good to go and see it a second time, in Zach's case, a third time, because you're able to at least calm down a little bit and like, all right, now I'm going to be able to enjoy some more of the nuances than the first time where I just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I guess for me, now that I've had a few more days to process it and think about it and like see all the reactions and everything, I think I appreciate it even more. The more I think about it, there are like little things that yeah, maybe that didn't work as well. Maybe that was that leaves a few more questions on the table than I think they wanted to. But the fun of that movie holds up so well because I just keep thinking back to moments from it, like whether it's like Fat Thor or or as the internet has started to call him, Thick Thor.
Yeah,
Thick
there you
Thor.
go. That's a lot more. It's a lot more
With 2 C's.
Respectable to the God of Thunder.
Yeah, Thick Thor.
But he looked like melted ice cream.
But it's all those little jokes, all those little gags that were so much fun. Let's I want to dive into everything that we really liked from this movie. Let's break this whole thing down. How did you guys think, so jumping to 5 years into this movie, how do you feel, like talking about thick Thor? His emotional journey over the course of the film. Like, how did this hold up to you guys as Thor's journey when you think about it from Thor 1?
Oh my god.
Thor 1 through the Dark World, through Ragnarok, through the Avengers movies. Did this feel like a good place for him to wind up as he like went in his like MCU arc?
I mean, I personally love it. I know that we've talked about it before. Some people have a little bit of an issue with this comedic Thor. I personally don't mind it. And the way that I look at it is that, hanging out with the Avengers made him loosen up and get funnier. And I like it. And it's just, I mean, also you get to see the team up between him and Rocket. That was really awesome. And him ending up here is perfect. I thought that when they were going into, when they went to go get him, and Valkyrie's like, he's not going to see you, that we were going to see a very angry, broody Thor.
Right.
Not a fat, drunk Thor. So that was like, I was completely surprised, and I was like, oh my God, yes. Totally, again, one of those things that you didn't know you needed, but when you see it, you absolutely do.
But it works so well
Yeah.
because you did, like, it's, if it was the Thor that we had like been thinking about like during the Dark World years, like those years, you just like, yeah, that's like the even through Ultron, you'd be like, yeah, that's the Thor that like we expect to see. That's the comic book Thor that we're sort of like expecting. But what I love about the Chris Hemsworth iteration and what he became, the more like they just embraced who he is as an actor, is you got this comedic, silly Thor. And like that's what we loved in Ragnarok. That's what that character became. So it would be a disservice to that movie and like the growth that he had. That's the interesting like meta thing is like they sort of accepted who he was as an actor while Thor the character was accepting who he was and just being like a little more rambunctious and silly.
Yeah, and he's been exposed to more things besides just Asgard. So, he's getting out there and seeing the world, seeing the universe. It's made him different.
And I think this makes sense for his overall arc, his journey into mystery, if you will. Thank you. It's very telling in Ragnarok when he just references the fact that he and Jane were broken up. You can tell he's like, no, I know that's not supposed to bother me. These things aren't supposed to bother me. And this is one of those things where he feels it's so important that, no, the fact that I wasn't able to save the galaxy and prevent everyone from being, or half of everyone from being murdered, no, that doesn't bother me. But of course it bothers him. And instead of, dealing with your feelings, getting a therapist, talking to friends, let's just drink a lot and eat a lot and play video games. So I think it made sense. And I love where he ends up at the end of the movie. Well, I love where he ends up literally, but also emotionally, just where he kind of comes to term with everything. And, getting a do-over that certainly helps him,
Yeah. No, it was that was the cool thing is like it made sense that he got really desperate in that moment at the beginning, chopping Thanos' head off. It made sense that he then became a recluse. Like especially like I think being confronted by the Asgardians like that were left. And what's really cool is like when I went back and rewatched that scene a bunch of times, like you see Valkyrie, you see like the fishermen that are there, which like may or may not have been Asgardians. Like I have so many questions about this little village. Like did they move into an existing village that was there?
Just rename it New Asgard. This is New Asgard now.
Or did they like build a new town?
Right. And you had, I don't know if you said this on the show, but you had a theory about where that location might be. It might be something that we saw in Ragnarok.
Yes, I think like based on like it's either near or it is the same like hillside that Odin died on.
Right.
Because if you go back to that scene, Odin says like anywhere could be Asgard. This could be Asgard. So I think Thor took that to heart. It's like this could be Asgard, and he goes right back to where Odin died, and they build New Asgard on that spot.
That's a nice nod.
It makes so much sense, and it is like at least the same like look of a location. So whether it is or it isn't, whether like filming wise, headcanon.
In my head,
it's
it
where
is.
Odin died.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's like that's really cool. If you look in the background, you can actually see some like more. So like some big like giant type dudes like aliens that would have come with like Korg and those guys. The slave class. Like,
sure.
They're moving around in the background.
Oh, that's great. I did not catch that.
Yeah, it's very small. Like they didn't want to like waste they didn't want to do a ton of like big VFX stuff for like to put someone in the forefront. They didn't need special edition style, just like alien horses riding through the background.
Right.
Shade. But they threw those aliens in there. They made it true to the universe that this is, where it wasn't just the Asgardians, it was also everyone that Korg and Meek brought with them. It was those two teams together. And yeah, they got halved twice effectively, because they sort of got like halved by Thanos when he showed up at the beginning of Infinity War, and then halved again by the Gauntlet. Like, I'm like, can we leave the Asgardians alone?
Yeah, true.
Like, they got most of them got killed in Ragnarok, then like half of them in Infinity War, and then like another half by the end of that movie. Jeez.
There's like 10 Asgardians left. That's it. They had to recruit some new people to build the village.
I mean, there's not many. Like, at bare minimum, there's not many. So yeah, that's a really fun. So that's Thor's arc, and where he like sort of comes back around at the end. Also, can we talk about how metal Thor is in this movie?
I know.
Like, he got like big and tubby, and like the thick thing is really funny, but like when he goes armor towards the end of that movie, when he's got the braid in his beard, there's one shot of him like coming at Thanos where his eyes are glowing bright. He's got the like Nordic braid in his beard, the two hammers in his hands, and he's just like pressing down at Thanos. And I've never seen a more metal image in my life.
It's amazing. I still love the line. I know me and Christian have done this a bunch, but it's just my favorite. No, you take the little one. And he goes,
yeah, exactly.
So good.
That was great. I mean, look, the Cap. So like that's a perfect transition. Let's move over to Cap at that moment. Who his arc over the course of, as the original, and you could argue this based on Captain Marvel, the original Avenger. The first Avenger. They sort of, that's another thing about that, like, giving her that title, that like it came from her call sign, is like, no, but it's in his title.
Yeah, he's the first Avenger.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's a whatever like complaint. I still like that movie. But so Captain America as the original Avenger. How did you guys like his arc as he goes from like he has sort of the he and Tony have the big, like, we completed their, I mean, they're the two characters that we really said goodbye to.
Yeah.
In this movie, like, in a big way, in a non, like, it's the Marvel universe and anything could happen.
Right, because even though we said goodbye to Natasha, we know she's having a movie at some point.
That's the thing.
So it's like technically we said goodbye, but we'll get her again.
And that's the other thing. I do want to talk specifically about Natasha and like some complaints that people have about the way that she was treated, and I want to get your thoughts on that in a little bit. But Captain America, who we're talking about right now, as like they gave him the emotional out that we were waiting for. How did this track for you guys from First Avenger bookended with Endgame?
Well, I'm going to start by saying I was really happy that instead of killing him, they did this, because I don't think I could have handled that. One was enough. It would have been way too bad. No, I love the arc that you get from Captain America. You get to kind of see him, you know, he starts off with the, I guess I want to say like Boy Scout sort of attitude a little bit, and then he kind of does this little roller coaster with, you know, Civil War, Winter Soldier, and then Civil War, and then he's like bearded Cap, and I love bearded Cap. And then it's just interesting how much he grows. He just grows so much as a character, and so much as a person, and so much as a superhero. Really, I like it. I haven't read like a ton of Captain America comics, so I don't know how closely it follows it. Christian?
Well, I would say that you're right, that he definitely evolves a lot, because we all remember in the beginning of Ultron, which for me, the first half hour is probably the best part of that movie. Language, please, you know? And so, you know, he's definitely goes a long way from that to be bearded Cap and all that. But yeah, I think going from World War II, sort of the circuitous route he takes to kind of looping back through it. But yeah, I mean, I think he becomes the modern day Captain America that, you know, people like me know from the comics. You know, he was always displaced out of time, but, you know, he figures out how to adapt, and, you know, he's still fighting for the same things. You know, it's just the adversaries aren't as clear cut. They don't all have swastikas on their arms. So I think that they did a really great job with him, and they managed to do it in a way where we couldn't be happier for him. I understand some people have, time travel ramification problems. Some people don't like that that's how it went. But I'm just like, how can you not be happy for Cap ending up with Peggy, however it happened? I mean, it's like he's got to be so happy that he gets to do that. So I'm happy for him.
I think that's what was so good about, again, for Endgame, like tracking these like original Avengers, like across. That's why I wanted to do it this way and like talk about like how did they go from like the beginning to the end. Is that like it perfectly works as a whole story for him. That's actually something I'm really looking forward to once Endgame comes out on like Blu-ray and home video and all that, is not just rewatching like Endgame. I want to track like, this is like I'm gonna do over years and years, but like watch through specific characters' arcs, like not in one sitting.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe sometimes in one sitting, but like go in and watch the first Avenger, then Avengers, then Winter Soldier, then Age of Ultron, then Civil War, then Infinity War, then Endgame. Like just specifically tracking Steve Rogers' story and like watching him throughout that stuff. Where like obviously there's other characters doing things in there in those movies, but just watching one character's arc through. Like watch Iron Man's arc through, watch Thor's arc through, watch like Black Widow's arc through from like when she gets introduced in, like watch Iron Man 2 and then the Avengers and then Age of Ultron and then like Winter Soldier and like all that stuff in a row.
And I think that when you do that, you get to see how drastic the change is, because now we've been seeing it over the years. It's been very gradual. So it's not as jarring or in your face, but I feel like if you watched it like that, you'd be like, "Oh, crap."
Even when you binge, like, because I slowly watched like all like 21 movies like over the past few months to like get ready for Endgame, but you forget what Natasha's doing because you go watch Thor Ragnarok and you see what Thor's doing. But if you go like to see what she deals with going right from like Ultron into like Infinity War is a very specific story. So Cap is a great arc there because he goes from the idyllic youth that he was, like in a clear black and white war of like good guys and bad guys. It was very easy to see at that time. And then he deals with the Avengers and the enemy, which again is like pretty clear, like we have to do this to save the day. Winter Soldier, where it starts to become a little less clear, like you have to deal with spies and stuff. And the interesting thing I want to ask you guys, because then in Age of Ultron, because Christian, you were talking about the top of that movie, he does budge Mjolnir in that scene. And there was one opinion that I read about that I think is perfect for why. So he could budget then. Yeah. Is there any? Do you guys see? I'm not going to tell you what the theory was, but like that changed between when he could budget and when he could just lift it.
Right. I do think part of it is that Thor grabs it because he's like, all right, that's enough of that. So yes, he does only budget, but he also doesn't want to see if he can actually pick it up. But I do think that he is a different person than he was at that point. I think that just sort of I don't know how you can be more worthy than Steve Rogers was at that point. But if you think of the things that he's fought for, the things that he's given up, and just, I don't know, maybe he's come around and been more somehow truer to his ideals, that he's somehow more worthy, that he doesn't have to work at it, that he can just call for it, So I would say that it's entirely possible that, however Mjolnir works, it is obviously in some way intelligent enough that it knows who's trying to pick it up. So I think that he has to be different in some way, for sure.
I kind of had a similar thought. Yeah, just the way that he's changed over time.
So what I think it comes down to is that while Captain America has always been good, there are plenty of people who are good. That good doesn't necessarily make you worthy. Yeah. What makes you worthy is being both good and a combination of humble and not like self-righteous. Which if you look at Captain America, especially like up through Civil War, he's pretty like self-righteous in that point, and he's not when you get down to it, he's not humble. Well, and here's the thing, in Civil War, up through Civil War, he is holding a major secret from his friend because he believes that he is right about whether it has to do whether it's worth his friend knowing. Like he believes, well, I'm Captain America, I know better than my friend about this, Tony, about whether he should know about his parents. And it's the theory is that it's that little thing that he then realizes by the end of Civil War, that's not the way we can leave. We have to like be honest with each other. We have to be like, and he has to sort of humble himself, go on the run, like sort of look into himself a little more. And that self-examination is what makes him humble enough, as well as like righteous and good, that now he can lift Mjolnir.
Well,
now he is worthy.
And a great
for the
thing
most
about
epic moment of all of these movies ever.
In Endgame, he literally gets to do a self-analysis when he runs into the past version of himself. And he's like, I can do this all day. And he's like, yeah, I know. So even he's like, yeah, I always had America's ass, but I was a bit of an ass too. So I think he that very clearly illustrates what you're talking about, that, yeah, he's definitely more humble. And, you know, he really does change being at odds with his friends, you know, and having to go on the run like that. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I see a question in chat. Why isn't Peter Parker worthy? Peter has so much self-doubt. Are you kidding? Peter Parker is like a nervous, nebbish little wreck of a superhero.
He's still finding himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Peter, you also have, there's a confidence that has to go with that. Like, it's all, being worthy is not just about being like a great hero and a good person. It's about, like, that's what I think that we can take away from that moment, and what that difference says to me as like, as a fan, and also just like as somebody who loves story and growth. I think what's really cool is that it lets you look at what is it to be worthy? What is it to be true to yourself? And that's what it comes down to, is like, can you acknowledge your faults, accept your faults, and then move forward and grow from those points? Can you be who you are meant to be and be better than that person as well? And then when Cap is able to do that, not just be the enhanced super soldier who is the best at what he is and like fights for what he believes is right, can he also just be the best person to himself and to the people close to him? And that's when he's able to do it. So, like, Peter's got a long way to go before he's there. Like, I love Peter Parker. He's, like, the most relatable superhero, like, probably for me and for most people. Yeah. But he is not worthy by a long shot.
Plus, by not being able to grab the hammer, you get to see the visual for something that we've seen many times in comics, which is him, you know, the hammer's flying through the air and he catches a ride on it. So I think that it was really cool that we got to see that.
That was awesome.
And so Captain America also, like, by the end of this, the big questions around Steve are the time travel and everything. And everyone's sort of been asking, like, so how did it work with him time traveling to the past and with Peggy and everything? And those are good questions, because we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, the time travel aspect. And if you want to get our theory on the time travel, check out our part 1 of our review where we go into like why. But the Russos have also commented on it this week, and like why specifically like Steve could travel back to the past and be with Peggy. And what they said was, if I can get it to come up on my phone here where I saved it, what they said was both the Ancient One and the Hulk were right. You can't change the future by simply going back to the past, but it's possible to create a different alternate future. It's not a butterfly effect. Every decision you made in the past could potentially create a new timeline. For example, the old Cap at the end of the movie, he lived his married life in a different universe from the main one.
Ah.
This is according to the Russo brothers.
Right.
They said he had to make another jump to the main universe at the end to give the shield to Sam. So according to the directors, what happened at the end of the movie was Steve Rogers traveling to a different universe. Probably the Peggy that we saw in Endgame, the one that when we went back to the 70s.
Right.
It's that Peggy, in theory. So, because I think what we're sort of getting implied here, because for like thinking more about the time travel thing, theoretically it might be a different reality every time you travel to the past. So like the one that they pulled, the Ancient One, like when the Ancient One and Hulk, like that one might just be doomed because they never went back to that one. But they went back to a similar, different one and put those stones back into that universe. And maybe in the infinite universe theory, all of those things happened, and there's a version of every universe where where they did and where they didn't, where they failed, and Thanos got the multiverse theory is infinite and mind blowing. But I think to simplify things, what the MCU is telling us is there were 2 timelines going on here. The you could almost just call that one like the Ultimate Universe. Like, so Captain America jumped over to the Ultimate Universe first to steal the time stones and then come back. And then once he finished, he went back to the Ultimate Universe and had a life with Peggy. And that universe is Peggy, went through all that stuff. That universe is a little bit different because, like, there were 2 Captain Americas in during the Avengers, and like there's a lot of questions running around. Like,
right.
Sitwell goes back to his Hydra people and is like, is Captain America with Hydra? And then they have to deal with all the fallout from that. And that could be just a cool comic book series in and of itself, is just like, what are the alternate MCU timeline stories that had like a little bit different stuff going on? But it is a different universe. And Cap, so it doesn't break Agent Carter. People were like, does it break Agent Carter? One, we can do the mental gymnastics to make Steve just fit into that universe anyway. But according to the Russo brothers, it doesn't, because that is MCU proper, and this is the alternate universe timeline that our Steve went back to. As to how he got to... I know I'm going on a long rant here.
No, but well, each answer poses 3 more questions. So, yeah.
So but this one I want to ask you guys if you buy the logic there, because Captain America then he doesn't show up in the jump point at the end of Endgame.
Right.
So does that work for you guys? Because that's where where it broke for me. It's like, how did he get to there in the timeline?
Right. I mean, the idea is that he time traveled the slow way. He just lived his life for whatever.
Which doesn't work if he's from an
right.
alternate
That's
universe.
what I
Right.
mean.
That's what I
so
thought.
it contradicts what they said, unless he has, I guess, a lot of time to figure out how to do it. So he could have jumped to somewhere else so that he can walk over there towards the pond and be there at that moment, because it probably would be too risky to try and return to that pad at that moment as an old man. You know what I mean? I think that it's you got to time it too precisely. So figuring out how he did it, yeah. I mean, and to your point that this is what the directors say, it's one of those things a lot of times where, like a song, people are like, oh, well, that's not what it means. Well, the songwriter says that that's what it meant to them. So if you don't like it, you don't have to, but this is what they said. That was their intent. So you got to at least take it at face value that this is the story that they tried to tell. Now, if you don't like it, that's a different story, but it does give you an answer. But again, it just raises so many more questions.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Like, how did he get the shield? Like, the shield broke, like the same, which was, I thought was really cool, because it's the same, like, I think pattern that it was broken in Tony's like vision during Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
But it breaks, like it's shattered in by the end of Endgame. But he hands Sam a perfectly intact shield. Did you guys have fun theories?
I mean, I just assumed that he made another one or got another one along the way. I mean, he could have, I guess, technically gotten one from maybe Tony's dad.
Could have gotten one from T'Challa.
T'Challa,
There are places. There's not a lot. It's not like you can just go on Craigslist and get a new Captain America shield, but you can get
well,
another
in our
one.
universe, you can.
That's true. It's a great point. Yeah.
Charles Lee sent in a fun
want one.
theory about how he gets it back, because like obviously it's made of vibranium, and Cap, whichever universe he's in, he knows some people that know some stuff about vibranium. So if he's in the past, maybe he calls up T'Chaka and like drops some Wakanda things to, and lets him know, like, hey, I'm from the future. I know all about the vibranium and stuff. Like, I'll leave you guys alone. Can you just fix this for me, please?
That would be actually.
Or he
pretty
didn't
great.
actually have it with him. Like, can you just make me a new one so I want to give it to my buddy.
Yeah.
He has it specially made for Sam.
Aw.
And speaking of tracking like Captain America through this movie, what did you guys think about the choice to? And chat, I want to pose this one to you. And I just see Gamer Girl in here. Simple. He took it from his past self.
Or that. Just
Well,
stole
yeah,
it.
that's true. Yeah. Past Cap takes a nap, and then old Cap just steals it from him.
Yeah. I mean, that Cap's running around like, dude, he took my shield. He's mad about it. Throwing a fit. But what did you guys think of the choice, and again, to the chat as well, to go with Sam Wilson for Captain America over Bucky Barnes?
I've said this before. It bothers me a little bit. Not that I don't like Sam. I love Sam, and I like him as the Falcon. If he'd stayed the Falcon, that would have been great. I think it just, and I know that he's also been Captain America in comic iterations. I totally understand that. What bothers me about it here is that he has the shield, but no super strength, no speed. Like, he hasn't gone through the super soldier process, so he's just a dude. Like, and he's in a great shape. I'm not, but he's just a guy. Like, he's gonna need to wear a suit to use the shield the way Cap or Bucky would use it, and that bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, look, for an ability standpoint, obviously Bucky, having been through the super soldier process or a variation of it, yeah, he would be in better shape for it. But I think Sam, it makes sense as a choice, and it's just like, well, I guess you get a new suit that can help. You're not going to have the wings anymore, but it asks a lot of questions. I think he's a good choice for Steve. I think if the government is putting together a new Captain America, well, they probably won't pick either of those two, but they would pick somebody else. I don't think. They would want somebody that they feel like is really going to listen to them. Like, any time in the comics when the government has been in charge of who is Captain America, it's never been, somebody that we're near and dear to. Yeah. So I think that for Steve just knows Sam and he knows his heart. And you get the impression, I don't know if you agree, Zach, that he had talked to Bucky about all this. Because Bucky's just like, yeah, over there. And he just kind of nods a couple times. So it's almost like Bucky kind of knew that he was going to do all this. Maybe not, but maybe old Steve visited him at some point and told him. But that was my feeling when I saw it.
Maybe it's either that or it's just like old friends and they know, it's unspoken between them. I love unspoken, if you will. No, and Sam actually, I think, will keep his wings. That's the thing. Like, we saw him fight in that battle. He took down one of those big hulking dudes on his own. He just jabs his wings into him. Like, he has moves with it. In the comics, when he becomes Captain America, he just adds the shield to the repertoire. He keeps his wings and keeps flying. And there is something very American about having a flying
falcon.
I know it's a falcon and not an eagle, but there is something about a bird of prey, symbolizing America. That it's an older version of America, maybe not today's America, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But I look forward to what I imagine will also be on Disney Plus with a different title. Which I guarantee it's the only, so here's the thing. Disney Plus, they announced 3 shows. They only gave us 1 logo, which was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I'm pretty sure they only gave us that logo so they could change it later. They put it out there just so they could be like, let's fix that. Captain America and the Winter Soldier coming to Disney Plus whenever November or afterwards. I don't know that they've started filming on that one.
No, I mean, we know when the service is going to launch, but we don't have any idea about any of those shows.
They haven't officially said any of those shows have started. WandaVision is supposed to be shooting in the fall, so obviously won't be airing in November.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll talk about WandaVision as well. All right. So that's sort of Captain America's story. You guys have any other favorite moments of his? Now that we're saying goodbye to him.
Excuse me, Avengers Assemble. Hello.
Great point.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was one of the times I cried.
We did talk about it in part 1.
I know we did. I'm sorry. I want to talk about it again because I loved it so much.
That was as you see it coming, those portals all opening, and he's just Avengers.
Yeah.
Assemble.
So good.
Although part of me was dude, they can't hear you.
Yeah.
That was a whisper. Come on, Cap, use your outside voice. I mean, they do sort of all have earpieces now. I think after the first Avengers, where they're how the hell are these people communicating? They're always give them earpieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But still, come on, Cap. It's a giant battle. They need to hear you. If anybody who's ever used a walkie-talkie or surveillance in their ear, you still got to be loud. Anyway, I want to engage the quantum realm one more time to jump back into the past and we're going to go back even further. We're going to take a big, just dial it in, because we're going back to the Marvel movie news phase 1 with this one. Gear it up and take us to Matt Cook for his Endgame reactions. Quantum Drive, go!
Hello, you merry Marvel maniacs. It's Matt Cook here. Long time no rant. Endgame. I loved it so much. I had such a blast. I saw it opening night at the Chinese Theater. It was a packed house. It was like being in a gladiatorial arena. People were losing their minds. The woman behind me and myself were making the same squeals throughout the whole movie, and it was so much fun. I've seen it twice now. Both times, loved it. Liked it even more the second time. The only thing I was left wanting was a bigger Hulk moment. I thought since they had pocketed him so hard in Infinity War that we were going to get a big Hulk smash sequence in this movie. And other than the doorway coming down the stairs, we didn't really get much. And I really thought we were going to get that. I love the fusion of Banner and the Hulk, but I thought with him having it under control, I thought he'd probably lose control, especially after Thanos leveled the entire Avengers facility. Other than that, I loved it. Favorite parts was when Thor called both hammers and the lightning braided his beard and he turned into fat Norse Thor. Oh my goodness, I lost it. And of course, most of all, Cap wielding Mjolnir. I lost my mind. I gave what I can only describe as a war cry as soon as he did it. And so did the entire theater, and it was so fun. And I love how good he was with it. He was really good with it, of course. But still, it's like a mystical hammer. You'd think there'd be a little bit of a learning curve, but not if you're worthy, I guess. Now we know. Also, Cap missing his time jump and living a whole life. Cap finally got his dance, and that made me so, so happy. I could go on, but I'll leave it at that. Excelsior, and hello, I miss you all. Bye.
The best thing about that video is he clearly filmed it at Tony's house from Endgame. He's just out there on the porch. It's great.
Hanging out.
For those in the chat who have been watching the show for a while, but maybe not for 200 episodes, that's Matt Cook, one of the original hosts of Marvel Movie News way back in the day. As I said, we're going to phase 1 of Marvel Movie News.
Nice.
But yeah, there's so many great moments in this, as Matt was talking about. And like just off of so like while we're talking about like the Disney Plus series, why don't we just talk about those for a minute? So a brief respite before we go back into the
Right,
other
but those
Avengers.
tie in so heavily to Endgame.
Well, yes, but what I mean is a respite from our tracking the Avengers.
Oh,
through
sure,
their
yeah,
movie.
I see what you're saying. Yes.
But so real quick, so like the three that we talked about Captain with like Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America and Winter Soldier, whatever it's going to wind up being. Loki. Do you guys think, is it going to be, we had theorized it was going to be a young Loki that gets brought back to life of our proper MCU Loki, or do you think it's going to be that now, or do you think it's going to be this alternate Loki that vamps out with the Tesseract?
I mean, now that we've gotten that, I'm kind of thinking they're going to lean more that way, because why would they get, I mean, and they could do this, but why would they get Tom Hiddleston for one episode before they flash back to a young Loki? Maybe they'll do that in a second season.
It's
if
cheaper.
they have a second season. It is cheaper.
a lot cheaper, yeah.
It is cheaper. But I feel like part of their selling point is the fact that, oh, hey, we have Tom Hiddleston. It's going to be focused around Loki, the Loki that you know. So, I mean, and I like that idea because we don't know where he went or what he did.
Yeah.
And he could get up to all kinds of shenanigans. That was when he was still, that was when he was doing all the shenanigans.
He hadn't learned anything.
yet.
He'd just been like beat up by the Hulk. That was his
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that's a real possibility. Although I think when I was watching the movie, I'm like, oh, at the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, we never really saw what happened there. I do feel like that timeline Thor isn't going to have that much trouble finding that Loki and setting things on the course that we're expecting them to be on. But I think that that's a great opportunity for that. We could also see when Loki's pretending to be Odin. I that's really a whole period that they kind of skipped over, because by the time Ragnarok happens, Thor knows that he's pretending. So we don't get to see that much of it. So that could be interesting.
Although then you'd have to get Anthony Hopkins in there.
Yeah. You do it in the way where it's like you pay for like a mirror reflection of Anthony Hopkins once, and then the rest of it is Tom Hiddleston because we're seeing him. It's the quantum leap theory, which again I get to mention again on this show. But I also think it could just be a standalone story from neither of those. So that's the beauty of that show, is it can be anything, and if they want to do multiple seasons, they can do all these things that we just put out there, and that'd be great because Loki's no more, but there's plenty of stories they could still tell with him.
Yeah, I'm not completely over that either.
Yep. And then there's the so in our proper universe, because although I saw somebody in the chat saying the shows are going to be what ifs, no, the what if is a very specific show.
That's a
that they're gonna
cartoon.
do.
It's also
The
a
rest of them
cartoon.
are all set within the Marvel universe. They're going to be affecting the Marvel universe. Like Kevin Feige is producing them. Like they are just as much a part of the MCU as the movies are. So good luck on those full MCU binges in the future, because now you're going to have 6 to 8 hour series to add in. But so the other one, WandaVision, one word, is coming up, and that is the biggest question, because despite the fact that some clickbaity articles from even some major news outlets were posting things like it's going to be set in the 1950s, that's not what that's not Wanda Maxwell. That's not what Elizabeth Olsen said.
Said 1950s vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she said it's gonna have
exactly
a
what she
1950s
said,
Totally
vibe,
different.
and tons of articles, like big, not like small websites trying to get your click, like big like news sites where like click on like it's gonna be set in the 50s, and then you read the quote, you're like, how did you get that from the quote? But no, it's not gonna be set in the 50s. More than likely it's gonna be set after Endgame. Like it is possible that they could go back and do the pre-Infinity War time, but I don't think so. I don't think that gets you anywhere, because that's just like, oh, we're doing some fun romance stuff, but it doesn't have any consequences because we already know where they're going. I think we're really gonna get a. So I briefly talked about this in our part 1 review, and I know you guys talked about it a little bit on Marvel TV Weekly, our sister show. But I think we're gonna get. And tell me if you guys think this is what might actually happen. A crazy thing where Wanda is gonna try to like magic Vision back to life, and then she's like living in a house in the suburbs with a like robot boyfriend, but like not the Vision type of robot boyfriend, like a robot boyfriend that she like made in her garage kind of robot boyfriend.
I freaking hope so. And then you see her just doing dishes, and she's wearing that like, the quintessential 1950s dress that's like got a little belt and then it flares out at the bottom.
Do I?
Christian, for sure. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I just see her wearing something like that and raising her robot children. I think that would be really fun. But she's also kind of crazy. So like you see you can see it coming through. Like she's definitely a little bit cracked, and there are moments when maybe she realizes that this isn't real, or the fact that she created this sort of comes to the forefront of her mind, and we see her losing it a little bit. Ooh, I hope so.
Well, yeah, crazy Wanda is fascinating because of just how powerful she
Yeah.
is and what she can do. And it would be interesting to see her, creating this world that she lives in, knowing that it's not real and that it's not quite the way she would want it to be if Vision were still alive. So that can, that's one of those ones where like, oh, it can be really fun, but by the end of the series, it could just be devastating because she just realizes like, yeah, I actually don't have any of this, and I need to move on.
But that's what I really would love about that show is like, as somebody who loves science fiction, like the idea of a character like dealing with the question of like, my original boyfriend was a robot, but not quite to this type of robot. So at what point does artificial intelligence become defined as a true sentient being? And like other characters coming in to like show concern, you could see Clint showing up like, "Hey Wanda, you okay?"
And then he walks in and he's like, hey, she's like, say hi to Vision. Hi, Vision.
Oh,
Hello.
And it's like this would be a cool time to like use alternate costume versions of the characters. Like you get the all white Vision as this
Yeah.
version
Yeah.
or something like that, and you're just like, okay, hey guys, we need some help over here at like 51 Mysteria Lane. But yeah, I think that could be a really cool idea for a series. All right. Any other thoughts on Wanda? And then I want to jump back in.
I mean, I say this every time, and I'm going to keep saying it. Let's just have that shoot off into a House of M series. Thank you. That'd be great.
Do we want to talk about the Hawkeye series, or
Well, the Hawkeye series has not officially been announced.
That's what I was
it's just a
wondering, yeah.
rumor. So, like, in the interest of time, we talked a little bit about
Yeah.
like Kate Bishop and stuff on part 1, and I want to make sure that we have time because I really want to talk about Natasha.
Right. And the only thing I'll say about it then is if it's a Ronin, him out there just killing people that need killing, I'm fine with that. But that's probably not a Disney Plus vibe. So
No,
it's gonna
be training.
Yeah.
If that show is happening, it's
Yeah.
going to be Hawkeye trying to retire and training a new Hawkeye that is a new Arrow-based character that's come onto the scene, like, you're going to be the new Hawkeye. Which also, actually, as we're talking about Hawkeye, I didn't realize this was Endgame was the first time that anyone has ever said the name Hawkeye.
Oh, that's
on
interesting.
screen.
I did not know that.
And I like, prove me wrong if you can, because like somebody said it to me and I was like, no, that can't be. Wait a minute. And I'm like tracking it through. I'm like, without rewatching all of his movies, like every movie, like they don't say it in Thor. The closest you get is in Avengers when Selvig is like, what, the Hawk? He's up in his nest. But when he says to his daughter, like, there you go, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
That's the first time anyone ever calls him that out loud.
Huh.
And it's just like, because like people don't have code names the same way. They call themselves by their names. Only Spider-Man has a secret identity in this universe. Literally only Spider-Man. Only Peter Parker has a secret identity in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The majority of them don't wear masks.
Yeah.
You know, so
and even the ones that do are like pretty outspoken. Like everyone in Wakanda knows who the Black Panther is, and they like Civil War. They find out pretty quickly who it is.
Yeah.
Like nobody else is really keeping it secret. Anyway, Natasha Romanoff, like from Hawkeye right over to Natasha. How did you guys? Were you guys satisfied by the way that they handled her death in this movie?
I was really the way she died. I don't mind that. What I was surprised is how early in the movie it was. It was strange having the whole like almost second half of the movie without her in it. She wasn't in the final battle. That was weird, and that definitely bothered me a little bit because it's this culmination of all these characters and all these movies and their whole arcs and their whole storylines, and sort of you get that big satisfying ending, and she wasn't there. That being said, the way she died made sense because to her this was her family. She had no one else. I mean, Clint has his family, Tony has Pepper, Spider-Man has his family and friends in school, and for Natasha, Black Widow, it was literally the Avengers. Those were her family. And so the reason she did it made perfect sense. And it definitely, I think, did justice to her character in that sense, but it was weird.
Do you guys feel that, like, because like I agree that it was justice for her character. I thought character motivation made sense. A lot of people on the in reviews and everything, and like friends of mine that I've talked to in person have said that they feel like this was that they fridged Black Widow in this moment. And if you're not familiar with that term, fridging is a reference to a Green Arrow story where a female character is created and then killed and like literally put in a fridge just to further the male character's storyline. And that's where that term comes from.
Right.
And do you think that applies to the Black? I want to talk about this because like it's a real thing that a lot of people feel, and
I've seen it. I've seen it circulating on my own Facebook feed, and I just feel like it's fine that people feel that way. I don't know that I need to have that conversation on Facebook, but I'll talk about it here. It's self-sacrifice, and if you think about what her sacrifice means. Without her sacrifice, yes, sure, Hawkeye was going to do it, but somebody had to do that for any of this to work. So she contributes to saving everyone, because she's willing to do this. And, Clint is determined to do it. And she's like, no, I'm going to be the one to die here. So I think when someone gets fridged, it's not their choice. It's not even close to their choice. You know what I mean? And I think that there are some criticisms that, this is the character that still hasn't gotten her own movie. And yes, to Xia's point, it would be great if she's able to participate in that battle, but you don't get to that battle if she doesn't sacrifice herself. What happened to Gamora is just more of a waste because Thanos just tosses her off. She wants to she wants to tumble down there like that. And so I don't see it that way. I can certainly, look, no one's opinion on the issue is invalid. I just disagree. I feel like that's one of the most heroic things that happens in the movie,
Yeah. And then she has to fight for that right. I thought to me, what really makes it true to her character is like when you get down to it, the Black Widow is a super spy, not a super powered spy, just the best spy out there. And what is more of a spy move than something that doesn't require anything but your choices and your motivations. Like a spy doesn't use. Yes, Natasha uses her fighting ability occasionally to like take down enemies, and like we've seen her fight her way out of circumstances. But like where I think she was like the best in like the Avengers, like the first one, like her first scene, she extracts information from a target while tied up and like seemingly helpless. And she still wins that. And then she could have gotten out at any time, but that wasn't what was impressive. Like, yeah, there are tons of characters that can fight their way out of a scene with like 100-to-1 odds. But she outsmarted them from a chair, like with her arms tied up.
Yeah.
And like this was her outsmarting the whole situation, the whole universe in order to win the battle. Like she wasn't going to fight for the Tesseract. She wasn't gonna like defeat everybody to get the Mind Stone. Like she had to think of a way that she could use all of her, like use everything about herself to get a stone, and that was a Soul Stone. And then even then, like Clint, the other super spy, was like, "No, I'll do it," and she's like, "No, I'm better than you." She outspied Clint for the right. And
she did. And also, and I feel like she knew Clint has a family, and they're literally what they're doing is to get them back.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's my point. So,
also
like,
why
so
she did
on the Clint side, because that's sort of the argument that people are making is that she sacrificed herself to further Clint's life to help save him. But I don't agree with that. But how do you feel about like that
No,
specific?
I don't agree with that at all. And even if she did it, it doesn't have anything to do with her being a female, and she certainly wasn't created for that particular goal. They weren't like, we're making Black Widow just so she can further Clint's story 22 movies or, however many movies it was later.
Or even if it's not creation, but just using a character. For
yeah,
that
but I still disagree with that. And I feel like if you look less at gender and more just at the story, if you start ignoring gender, like we should, because hello, thank you, equality, it would be nice, then it's just a fantastic story, whether it was her, and it makes more sense for it to be her than him.
Yeah.
So
the part of the argument that I'll agree with, Gamer Girl mentions this, is she's disappointed that Natasha doesn't get a funeral, and obviously not in the moment, because the funeral she gets basically is Hulk throwing a bench. But at Tony's funeral, there certainly could have been a moment. I think from a storytelling standpoint, it takes away from what Tony did. But I do understand people being like, nothing? You don't have anything for her there?
Yeah.
I don't know that it needed that, but I certainly understand people who think like that's an opportunity where they could have honored everyone who has sacrificed, and especially Tony and Natasha. So I just want to get that in there.
You're right, that's true. They all but ignored her death at the end there.
Yeah. No, they react to it right after, but not like later on. And part of me is hoping that we'll get to that in the Black Widow movie, like as a sort of like before the flashback, like sort of the way that like Wonder Woman used because Wonder Woman was in a similar circumstance, not because it's a female character, but just because it was her movie was years before her introduction, and so like they started out her movie with a current day thing, and then used a picture to flash back. So I think that you could start with a Black Widow funeral at the beginning of her movie,
right,
and then use that to go right back to Budapest. If you don't explain Budapest in the Black Widow movie, Marvel, I'm gonna be so mad. Yeah.
Unless there's an end credit scene that Black Widow 2 is going to take place all in Budapest. But yes, I agree with you. Where's the Budapest payoff at this point?
I mean, they even referenced
mentioned it enough.
In this movie.
Yes,
they brought it up again, Marvel. Anyway.
So it's gonna be okay, Zach.
Deep breaths. Okay. So, I mean, while we're on the subject, like just in the way that like the female characters were treated, like it was a fair point. And I feel the need to just like make these, because these are fair arguments. And like while we're bringing up a lot of theories, like when everyone goes to the past, none of the female characters that left technically make it back when you actually get down to it, because that wasn't our Nebula. That was past Nebula that came back. And
true.
it's just it's a fair point, and I think it's like that's just the heroes that like wound up available and like made sense for this movie. And like that's partially that like the MCU has been unbalanced in terms of gender representation before this. This is the end of this era, and the balance has not been great in the first 3 phases. But I think going forward, Marvel has been very like they're very like you can see that they are intending to be more balanced in that like in that favor. So like going forward, it will sort of hopefully be better. But if you're going to end a story, you can only introduce so many of the more of like the newer characters into it that way. And of course, we got the moment where you see all of the amazing female characters at once. But it was a very interesting moment, and I've literally talked to dozens of people about it and gotten intense reactions in both directions. So, Xia, I don't mean to single you out.
No, that's okay.
I want to like get your perspective on this. What did you think of that moment on the battlefield in the middle of an amazing battle, a bunch of amazing heroes? How did you feel about it?
Okay, I've talked to a lot of people too, and then I started to feel like I was the only one, even though I'm sure there are other people out there. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, so I'm sure that's also other women that feel the same. I hated it so much. That was one of my big problems with the movie. Like that was kind of it. My big problem with the movie, I was like, oh, come on. Because first of all, I see what you're doing. Like, hello, that's ridiculously transparent. Anyway, second of all, how would it work out that way? There's no possible way of that huge battlefield with everybody off in different directions and fighting that all of a sudden all the women would be together. They did the same thing in Infinity War when they were at the Battle of Wakanda. They did the exact same thing, but it was a little bit smaller, so I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. But this one, it was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. And when this is another thing that bothers me about it, when people and companies or whatever start doing this, I legitimately don't think it's genuine. They're doing it to please the loudest people yelling. Like, I really feel that way. If you were just naturally making a movie, that wouldn't happen. They're doing it because of the climate we're in today. And it's not genuine to me.
Well, also, in this instance, as opposed to Infinity War, Spider-Man's right there. He's there with them. And it's like, we're not going to show him. Yeah. So it's like, because that's not what the moment is. So it feels disingenuous. But we talked about this. We talked a little bit about the movie on Marvel Movie News on AfterBuzz on Sunday. But while we were waiting to talk about it, there were 2 different conversations with people here who were like, "Oh, but how about that moment?" Because people loved that moment.
People loved it, and it's fine if you do.
Yeah.
Just for me, I was like, "Oh, all right, I get it."
To be honest, I felt similarly in that moment. It was like I look at each of these characters and I love all of them.
Of course.
These are all amazing
Absolutely.
characters. I love that Wasp popped up in the front because that was like, all right, where's Wasp?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Where's Wasp? Yes, there's
If they're gonna do it, you gotta include Wasp.
But you also have Mantis there. And that was like to me, she's like the perfect person to explain like why there was an issue with that sequence. Because look, it's a comic book movie. Logic sometimes has to be thrown away. We've already dissected time travel, but like we dissected time travel and we were all invested in how that worked because we do want some kind of like logical balance to this. So in the flow of the battle, like how is a character whose main power is empathy, and like that's a very powerful thing to be able to do. Like she could hold Thanos in place with that power. Like she's not a weak person,
of course,
but she's not going to be super helpful on a battlefield, especially not in like what is you're teasing as the most dangerous part of the battle. Like I would love to have seen her like on top of one of those big brute dudes, like bring it down by just like touching its head. But like, why was she right there
in front of Thanos? Right, where you're right. She has to attack from behind. It makes no sense.
So what I would have, so like as a writer, like you never critics, you never like note something without having a suggestion. What I would have, and I think that there's a way to earn that moment that I would have loved to see. I think you could have just done if it was that string of like where they're passing Spider-Man like a football and he's just sort of sitting there like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, oh my god, which is a great line.
That was great.
But like, and if it was like all of that, or even it was just the gauntlet being tossed between them, and then they all, so it's like a string of them, like Wasp picks it up and like catches it as a small thing and then chucks it to Valkyrie on the Pegasus and like runs it down and then throws it off to, and it's like almost getting caught by one of those brutes and Mantis brings it down and then Captain Marvel swoops in and brings it, and then they all walk into that shot together afterwards, like right up to the van, reverse engineer that sequence, and I think it's way more powerful because you just saw them all be badass, and then they get the hero walk. You did the hero walk before you did the hero thing.
Exactly.
And that was the problem with it.
Exactly.
It wasn't that you got all the female characters together or that they were all badass, because they all are.
They all are.
It was just that they didn't earn it in the moment. They were posing before the battle.
Yeah. And I will say that before that happened was another one of my favorite moments in the movie, when Wanda comes up to Thanos and she tells him, you've taken everything from me. And Thanos says, I don't even know who you are. And she says, you're gonna. And then like goosebumps. Like that was amazing.
So to Gamer Girl in the chat wants to know, like, that she really liked it because she thinks it teases the potential of an A-Force movie. The
Okay.
A-Force being like an all-female Avengers like team up. Do you guys think that an A-Force movie, one, is coming, but two, it would be something that, would you be down for an A-Force movie?
Again, I feel like it's unnecessary. I feel like if they're really trying to push what they're trying to push, with the narrative being like, yeah, we want men and women to be equal. And I'm going to say this without getting too far into it: equal, not the same. Okay? Thank you. Second, if you really want it to be equal, doing things like that is just furthering more separation. And if just put them all together and act like it's not a thing, and then people will get used. It really bothers me when they start pushing things like this. Christian.
I think that if they're determined to do that movie, they have to earn it the way that they did with the Avengers. So you're going to have to give us these female characters, not even necessarily starring in their own movie, but like how you had Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's not half her movie, but it's largely, she's very involved in that movie. So I don't say jump to it. I think they could tell stories with some of these great, we've already had Captain Marvel, and we'll see whom else might be a part of it. But if they want to do it, have us care about the characters. Don't jump right into putting this team together, or make it like an Ocean's 11 where you assemble a team for one specific mission. Because if there's a Marvel Ocean's 11, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Or I guess technically this would be an Ocean's 8, but I would still want to see that. So
I would too, but I just think it's unnecessary. I mean, you can, I guess, if you really want to do an all-female cast, but I feel like it's unnecessary.
I'd like to see both. I don't want a gender specific. I don't want a race specific. I want to have Earth's mightiest heroes and whomever they might be, put them together, and the lineup, like with the comics, will change from movie to movie. So sometimes, sometimes the X-Men had like 5 women and Wolverine. Great, that works for that time, and that's the stories they're telling. So I'd like to see that. If they're gonna do that, just have it be the Avengers, and sometimes there's more women than others.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool. There's so many cool Marvel stories you could do. And speaking of cool Marvel stories, let's keep talking about Endgame.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest.
And the stuff that we loved about it, because there's so much that we loved. So let's talk about like some other characters. We talked a little about these guys in part 1, but like Tony and like the Hulk. Tony obviously has his big arc in this movie. Like he completes it. That's what that like tease at the end of the movie was. Like you get Tony like. It's an homage, and the Russo brothers have confirmed this. It's an homage to Iron Man 1. It's not like a tease of something towards something that's like they're doing. Although to me, it was also like it also helped signify like we're building something else. Like we're in our workshop building another Iron Man type thing. Did you guys feel that? How did you? In a real quick way, because there's a lot we still want to talk about. Were you satisfied with Iron Man's story across all of these movies? Which, by the way, is officially 11 years today since Iron Man 1 came out.
Wow,
11 years. Jeez. I mean, yes, and it makes sense for a sacrifice. I knew it was going to happen as soon as he looks over at Doctor Strange and he nods at him. I was like, oh, that's the one shot. And Doctor Strange knew it the whole time. But yes, I was. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think that it's you talk about Cap's journey a little earlier in this episode. I mean, Tony started in a much worse place. Like he couldn't have even been in the same room as Mjolnir when we first meet Tony Stark. Not that he gets to lift it, but that's not the point. So you see him just become such a better person. He becomes a dad, which I think that even through Iron Man 2, you're like, yeah, I just can't imagine. So just to sort of see the sacrifice that he makes as well, because we talked about Natasha's sacrifice, but he knew stealing the stones that was going to be it for him. There's no coming through that. You know, he had the technology to actually be able to do something without dying, but you know, he knew that it wasn't going to be. You know, so that level of sacrifice is not something that I think we would have seen in earlier iterations of Tony Stark. Maybe by Avengers, but I'm not convinced even then. So I think it ended at a place where it kind of had to go this way. You know, I don't know where else there was for him to go.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. All right, I could talk about Tony all day. The Hulk, like I think with we talked about a lot about like Smart Hulk last time, and like I just want more of it.
Yeah.
Give me more of Bruce Banner running, like walking around as
so
like
strange.
as
was like, what is
Professor
this?
Hulk. I like look. I generally don't like Smart Hulk in
I
the
agree with
comics.
you,
It's something
yes.
that I don't really enjoy. I enjoyed this so much.
On both points, I agree. In comics, I don't tend to like it, but this, I'm like, oh, this is great.
Because in comics, it's always felt forced.
Yeah.
This felt earned. This
Yeah.
felt like, I'm like, this is where Banner was going this whole time. Like, this is like like Mark Ruffalo, especially, his Banner has been building towards this since the beginning. Like, he's had a very tumultuous relationship, but also an understanding of it that I've, like, it's a nuanced in this, like, intricate way that this just totally works. It's also so funny, and Ruffalo's so good.
Yeah.
But I agree with Matt Cook. I thought not getting any Hulk out except for Hulk out in the past. You know, we saw 2011 Hulk. Just a big moment where he does something big would have been nice, but it also didn't fit into what they were doing with the character. So I understand it. I just would have really liked it.
Yeah. And now I want to engage the Quantum Realm Drive one more time, once more. And then we're going to get into Doom's Question Corner, which, because we have a lot of questions from you guys that I want to make sure that we get to. So let's go. We turn into phase 2. We turn into phase 1. But let's go. I like phase 2. Phase 2 is nice. That was when I was just a voice in the air. But so I'm gonna let's travel back via the quantum realm for more Endgame thoughts from phase 2. Markia, how you doing?
Hello, Zach and everyone. I'm Rakia McCarty. I used to be on the show, if you don't know who I am. Yes, so the spoiler review of Avengers Endgame today. Wow, y'all, we made it. I mean, 11 years, 20 plus movies. I mean, there's a time heist involved. Dark World matters. Black Panther is back, and of course we knew it, but oh, tell me you did not feel something when he popped out of Doctor Strange's like ring and it was him and Okoye and Shuri, and I can't even. But so many things. I absolutely loved Captain America having to battle Captain America. I loved the passing up the shield from one Captain America to the new Captain America, and so many feels. I'm pretty certain that the funeral scene that was Harley from Iron Man 3 in the back, you know, just with that, and oh, the battle scene and Captain Marvel, and I'm keeping this to a minute, so love you all, bye, Doom!
Doom and Doom's Question Corner, so that works out. Thank you,
Yes.
Markia. All right, we're back to the present again. Back to the present. That seems like a perfect place to start at the end there. Just like all the questions that people have had about like the end of the movie. And this one I got from a bunch of people, so I don't have a name in front of me, but like, yeah, who is that at the funeral? Yes, that was 100% the kid from
Yes.
Iron Man 3. In case that you hadn't realized it, I had his name in my head and then it went away.
And it took me a minute seeing it. I'm like, wait, who's that? And then I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, okay. But it didn't come to me right away. So,
Yeah, that was Harley Keener. Is the name of the character, and to me it made perfect sense for him to be there. Like, this is a kid who like Tony sponsored, I assume has kept track of this
Yeah.
whole time, and it was a good like just reference to that movie that you got Harley Keener, played by Ty Simpkins, to come and be at the funeral. And it's real quick, but it's like for a lot of people, like I know a lot of people don't love that movie, but I think it's a great movie, and like a lot of people love it. I've talked to some people this week who Iron Man 3 is their favorite Marvel movie.
Interesting.
And like every one of those movies is somebody's favorite. And for people who loved Iron Man 3, this kid was like a big help to Tony. It makes sense that he was the only like civilian at the funeral.
Yeah.
It adds up. So more questions. We're just going to tear through these things. This one comes from Cody Avery via the email, which you can send your future questions to doomsquestioncorner@gmail.com. if you want to send it. Cody Avery asks, how are the Avengers able to handle the Infinity Stones without killing them? In the verse, Guardians took the whole team to handle one. I know, like, so how are they able to do it? Basically, think of the Infinity Gauntlet as the same thing as the orb in Guardians of the Galaxies. Not the stone itself, but the orb. Like, you can pick up the gauntlet as long as you're not just, like, putting your hand on the stone.
Yeah, even the way the Ancient One hands the stone to Bruce, as strong as he is, there's like a little bubble around it. You know?
Yeah.
He's not actually touching it. Yeah.
And I think that it depends on the stone too. Like the Soul Stone is one that we see visibly handled by like Hawkeye. Hawkeye holds it in his hand. Thanos holds it in his hand without it like doing anything to his skin or anything. And maybe that's because they were the ones that sacrificed themselves for the stone. But I think like also like you may even be able to brush the stones while they're in the gauntlet because the gauntlet is siphoning some of that energy into itself. So that's really it. The gauntlet acted as a like protection thing, a thing you could pick up.
That sufficiently answers it for me. Yeah.
As long as you don't put it on. Don't put on the Infinity Gauntlet if you're not the Hulk.
Man, if I saw it lying there, I'd have to put it on. So I'm glad it's not lying there.
What would you snap? What would your snap be?
Well, there'd be one person off this panel that would be gone.
Oh! I'm so
and it's not
scared.
Zach.
It's okay, I understand.
Whoa. This is a popular topic this week because it's like it's a popular topic every week. Let's be honest. How do you think they will incorporate mutants and the X-Men into the MCU? Specifically, do you think that the Hulk snap will have anything to do with it? This comes to us from Aaron Rook on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that question, and I don't think it'll have anything to do with it. I think that I honestly think we're closer to 5 years away from getting X-Men incorporated into these movies. So I think it'll have to do with some other event that we don't see yet. I know Zia hopes it's House of M. Yeah. And by the way, I would love that too. So that would be great. But no, I don't think that there's a direct correlation between anything that happens in this movie and getting the FF or mutants into this universe.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think that there is something to be said. The MCU loves to like tie in things, like as it maybe it's something like only the people who got dusted, their DNA was what was triggered to evolve that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And like so you could tie these things together. Like there was something like you got brought back and your DNA got affected. So like half of humanity now has an X gene in them. It doesn't really present itself in most people. But like the few that it does become the mutants of the future. So like you could blame something like that, even if it is still tied into it's still human evolution.
Wanda is technically a mutant, but they don't ever talk like maybe not in the MCU.
Not this iteration.
They haven't legally been able to call her a mutant in the Marvel universe, like because of the separation.
Right.
Now they could use that word if they wanted to, but her and Quicksilver got their powers via the Mind Stone.
Okay.
From the Scepter, they were enhanced via an Infinity Stone, so they're not technically mutants. Yeah.
Here, right? Yeah.
Right,
okay.
But it's easy enough to explain away, like, oh, they were mutants. This accelerated it. Boom. That's what happened. But yeah.
True.
So
there you go.
We'll see what they want to do with it.
Yeah. This is just sort of in a series of questions from Kyle Nichols, who sent it in. But I wanted to ask about this because it's something else that I'm seeing. Do you think that the earthquake under the water that Koye mentions at towards the beginning of the movie is a Namor reference?
That'd be cool.
Is that setting up Namor?
I think that would be awesome, and I did not have that thought until I saw. I think that question was on Twitter. I saw that, and I'm like, well, that would be amazing, but that's not what I was thinking at the time. I think it was just to show the impact the snap had on the world, and as Carol mentions, things like that are happening on planets all over in the galaxy. So, but if they want to turn it into Namor, I'm ready for him. So yes.
Yeah, I think if this could be it could be something you easily forget and like don't like think about at all again, but if they're really playing that deep, and I think that Kevin Feige absolutely is, that could be a really cool way to be like, look, it was there all along. That like this is since the snap, like because imagine you're Atlantis down there and you're living in an completely isolated world, and all of a sudden 50% of your citizens just disappear. and you don't know why. Yeah. Like that might be a time where you have to start breaking out of like the hidden world that you're living in. And so Namor is like getting ready to assault the Earth. Half of my people disappeared.
What did you do?
Then they came back
right,
like
exactly.
5 years later. But like, what happened?
Yeah.
And I would love that would like. I think Namor would be an amazing thing for Black Panther 2 if you want to do like a bigger world thing with that.
Yeah.
That could be a really cool.
Can I grab
story.
this question from the chat because I think it's a great one
Do
from
it
Jenna
up.
James? Who do you think the next big bad will be? Kang, Molecule Man, Doctor Doom, Norman Osborn, Mephisto, the Void, Magus Beyonder, Galactus, Annihilus, or the High Evolutionary? I'd love to see Galactus, but we need to build to that. So Kang, I think we're well positioned for.
Kang is the obvious one because we just meddled with time.
Yeah.
So Kang, who, if you're not familiar with Kang, he is a character from the future who comes back to the present day because the Avengers have mucked with time so much that they're now like breaking his timeline, and he's coming back to it, and he believes to kill the Avengers in order to protect the Earth and the future.
So he's kind of like another Thanos
He even
villain
looks a little
who
bit like Thanos.
that's
He's
hilarious.
Or he's
exactly.
blue
He's
or
blue
something.
skin, but his uniform is purple. But then also he's the future version of a character named Immortus. So they're working on a lot of different time streams with him. But it makes so much sense that he's who we would get next.
Yeah, almost too much sense.
Which is why it'll be the High Evolutionary.
But I don't know. I don't know that you get a big bad the same way ever again. Definitely not a 3-phase big bad.
No, I mean I think you get the way that the Chitauri and Loki teamed up in the first Avengers. I think you'll get something like that. But yeah, I don't think you'll have the next 22 movies aren't leading into something.
The thing is, like, because now everyone's looking for it,
Yeah.
I don't think you can even pull. I don't think you could do it. I think you could do like one big bad per phase.
Yeah.
So like you'll get, once you introduce the Fantastic Four, Galactus will probably be there by the end of that phase, whatever that is. And or like it makes a lot of sense for Fantastic Four to come in at the end of Phase 4. So maybe
Agreed,
that's where
yeah.
Galactus gets introduced and he's the big bad of Phase 5 kind of thing, which like. Jesus, we're even thinking about Phase 5. But like we know that Kevin Feige and his people have been.
I'm ready. Let's get this going, guys.
So Charles Lee asks, like, we're just gonna kind of pile through questions. So I
Sure,
want to get to
yeah.
a bunch of them. And this was a really fun one that he asked. What if, like, thinking about all the people that have been wiped out, what if Miles Morales was in the half that survived in 2018, which would mean that, let's say, like, Miles was like 10 or 11 at the
Right.
time, that would make him 14 or 15. What if we get into Spider-Man Far From Home and then there's a new kid on the debate team? Hi, Peter, I'm Miles.
That'd be cute.
That would be great. And the current Spider-Man animated series on Disney XD, both Miles and Peter are Spider-Man on that show. So
But they don't know it, right? If I remember
No, they know
correctly.
each other.
They do know
Yeah,
each other. They know
not
that
at
they're
first,
both
but they do
Spider-Man?
know each other.
Okay.
Yeah, they team up a
been a
lot.
while.
Yeah.
That would actually be really fun. Peter and Miles.
The cool thing about that is when you think specifically about Spider-Man, and this is what I really enjoyed about this notes. Thank you, Charles. Is that like it puts like so many characters into play that just like weren't right there.
Right.
Like whatever their ages were, like either it's somebody that Peter Parker did know in high school who's now older, like Charles mentioned Felicia Day. Like what if Felicia was somebody who was as old as Peter Parker before the snap, but is now in her early 20s, so she's an adult running around like having graduated from college.
Do you
so,
mean
like,
Felicia Hardy?
What did I say?
You said Felicia Day.
All right, I'm excited.
No, I know that. I wanted to make sure that the chat knew that. Yeah,
Hardy.
Yes.
Sorry.
I understand the mistake.
Felicia Hardy was snapped and then like is like a young woman in her like early 20s having graduated from college, but she went to high school with Peter.
Right.
This is the nonsense that I'm excited to deal with in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why would he actually be...
I mean, and it's what I can't wait to see explained in Far From Home, because we see the moment with Peter and Ned well, Ned's apparently in high school. Did he get snapped away or whatever? So what happened? How do they deal with these 5 years? You know, so I can't wait to see how they explain it. It looks like everyone in Peter's class got snapped away for 5 years.
The easiest way to deal with it is all of the significant characters,
Flash
from
and
Spider-Man.
MJ, everybody.
They all got snapped, so they came back at the same age, and you'll have some fun characters. Like I expect Martin Starr didn't get snapped, and he's been around this whole time. Now he's like the principal of the school or something.
That'd be great.
And he's just like, oh, hey, Peter, been a while. I'm principal now. Debate team, go have fun. Or like just like other characters that like their friends, like one of the smaller characters, like is just older now, and they like come back from college to see their old baby-faced friends, and it's super awkward and uncomfortable. I'm hoping that like we're supposed to get a trailer soon for a new one for Spider-Man Far From Home.
Guarantee right after we go off the air.
Probably, or it's already come out.
Yeah, no, I'm actually looking for it right now, but that won't really help us because we can't watch it.
Yeah, we can't watch it while we sit here. But I think that if they are smart, they will have played with this in a really fun way. And maybe not. Maybe they'll like sort of not deal with it. They'll just like quietly deal with it at the top. Because also like, how would you even like? You would have had to tell the filmmakers. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it.
And by the way, a lot of sources say the Far From Home trailer next week.
So next week, Thursday at 2 is basically what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds
a week from right now.
Sounds right. There's one more I definitely wanted to get in from Tyler Kelson. So when Cap and Tony are in 1970, we get a brief cameo from James Darcy, reprising his role of Edwin Jarvis from Agent Carter. Why do you think he is the first character to go from TV to the movies? I think it was, honestly, I bet it was Haley Atwell.
It was so easy to do. It didn't cost, he wasn't asking for a ton of money to be in the movie. It was probably just really easy. And they're like, it makes so much sense. Let's do it. Let's not overthink it. That the fact that this is the first character created for TV in the movie. And it's such a great moment. I'm so glad that he was there. Yeah.
I was one of the few people in the theater, like, vocally going like, ah!
Yeah, I
when
was
he
there.
popped up, and no one else knows why I'm screaming. Like, what? It's his driver that, like, happened to be named Jarvis. That's cool, I guess. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. And as to the question of, like, whether this makes Agent Carter officially canon, it always was. Like any of the TV shows, it was to the point that it was. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially the earlier seasons, were absolutely canon, and all those characters like did their thing. It's the one thing that like I wish we could have had in this movie is Agent Coulson. Like it's the one thing missing really from Endgame of all of the callbacks.
I wanted the Defenders standing there in the big fight. That's
yes,
what
but
wanted.
my point is like for the Avengers movies,
right?
Like,
I know, yeah.
Coulson was what brought the Avengers together, and it felt like that was the one thing I was like, but we never. But Coulson wasn't
because
there.
He died again. Therein lies the problem.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, he died again. But like it. But this is the thing is like, look, it's we got 6 seasons of Agent Coulson running, or 5 seasons of Agent Coulson running around on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that was the trade-off. You got 5 years of him, but we couldn't get his moment in the movie because it got too messy. In the weird standoff of like TV doesn't want to acknowledge, like the movies barely want to acknowledge TV, and TV is like trying to acknowledge movies, but like they're not always playing in the same sandbox. They just sort of had to be like, okay, I guess like Coulson's not going to be in this. Yeah, it would have been nice to maybe see him walking around like somewhere in like their time travel stuff, but it didn't work out. It's too bad. But I think that's unfortunately going to have to do it for Doom's Question Corner this week. Thank you to everyone who sent it in. I got to as many as we possibly could. There's a ton, and I very much enjoyed reading through them and thinking about all of the stuff that you guys sent in. So please keep sending them for the future, because we'll still take Endgame questions and other things. We didn't have time to really get into Hellstrom and Ghost Rider and S.H.I.E.L.D. this week. The trailer is really cool.
Yeah, agreed.
It's fun. It sets up like what's coming on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season, which premieres next Friday, which is crazy.
Hey, I'll have something other than Cloak and Dagger to watch. Hey,
you can watch it before Cloak and Dagger.
Catch up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Xia. It's so good. And you could bet that I'll be talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. every week from here on out. You can't stop me anymore. But thank you guys so much for joining us for Avengers Endgame. And thank you, Xia and Christian, for being here.
Oh my gosh, so great to
Did you guys
Yeah.
have any other thoughts? I want to make sure that you guys have a chance to say
I
anything
do
else
feel
that's
like
on your
Endgame
mind.
conversation will probably creep in, over the next few weeks, and I think that's what I think a lot of people will probably email in. But there's probably more that we'll think of, but we got so much time to talk about it this past week, which is great. But all the things that we didn't get to TV wise, and also some people in the chat are wondering about what does the TV universe do with the 5-year range of what happens after the snap. We're going to talk about some theories on that, and also the news about Ghost Rider and Hellstrom and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We'll talk about all that Sunday over on AfterBuzz TV at 9 p.m. Pacific on the show that Xia and I do, Marvel TV Weekly. So you can find us there, and you can find me at ChristianDMZ on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, very nice. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Xia_land. That's XIA_land. And you can yell at me about my views and thoughts.
Don't yell. Passionately discuss.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you guys are enjoying this, please be sure to like, rate, subscribe, all of those traditional things to Popcorn Talk, Marvel Movie News. If you're listening to my podcast, wherever you're subscribing, leave us a rating, leave us a review. It's a big help. And continue the discussion with us, like whether it's on Twitter or in the comments below on YouTube. Like, we want to know what your favorite moments were from Endgame, what things you're most looking forward to in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, what are you expecting from Spider-Man Far From Home, which is like gonna start off a little bit more morose. Like, those trailers are kind of sad looking now.
Yeah.
Because you're like, Spider-Man's like, I just want to go on vacation. You guys, you're like, oh man, he wants to go on vacation, not just because he's a kid, because he just was dead for 5 years. Oh my God. Like, it's way heavier.
Yeah.
But and like, there's so many more theories that we could go into there. Like has Mysterio just been operating for 5 years as like a hero in the background for S.H.I.E.L.D., or like what approximation of S.H.I.E.L.D. might exist? Like, so many questions. And we'll continue to talk about those, I'm sure, after we get next week's trailer and all that on Marvel Movie News. Thank you so much for joining us.
Don't forget that Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. Sorry, I just thought about that now. So go to your store. There's a ton of them, ton of Marvel comics and other books. So go out and grab them.
And grab some indies as well.
Yeah,
like, read
absolutely.
something new. All right. I'm Zach Wilson. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ZachWilson. And be sure to check out my other podcast, which is super silly, super ridiculous, Ships in the Night, where we take two characters from different universes and ship them together. And we did a bunch of Marvel stuff this week in honor of Endgame. We had April Dawn on the show, who was with us a few weeks ago. We shipped Gamora with Lara Croft.
All right.
Nice.
We wrote out what that crossover
I
would have
like
been,
it.
and then we did Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff with Harry Potter.
I also like that.
These were suggested to us. We're just the writers trying to come up with how it will work out. And we figured it out. And it's up on Ships in the Night on all your podcast places now. All right. Excelsior to you, our merry Marvelites. This has been Marvel Movie News. Thanks for geeking out with us.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.